So it's 7 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. We have guests waiting. So call the meeting to order. The introduction of late items. We have a petition for the residents on Seaview Street regarding Western Forest products. We also have a meeting to go into camera under section 90 at the conclusion of the public meeting. So those are the two late items. So approval of agenda. We have recommended a resolution, that the agenda for the regular meeting from July 20th, 2021 be approved.
So moved.
Please.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none. Carried. The minutes of the previous meeting, the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on June 15th, 2021 be adopted. Do I have a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carried. Petitions and delegations. This is Western Forest Products. And we have Jeff, Stuart, and Brad. Are you all on board there?
Yes, good evening, Your Worship.
Hello, thank you. Please just Mayor or Mark is fine.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Always got to start off at the top of the official, and I'll move it down from there. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So now you have about 10 minutes for your presentation. As you know, there's going to be some questions and answer period regarding this. So now also, do we have anybody of the general public on the line as well? Lisa?
Mayor Baker, I don't think we do. We had one party who requested an invite, but I don't see her here. So maybe she's opted not to join.
Okay, then we will not have the questions from the public at that point. Okay, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. I will attempt to share my screen, so just bear with me for 1 second. Perfect. I'm just going to confirm that council can see the presentation before I proceed.
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So again, thank you. My name for everybody is Brad McRae, former CAO, and now with Western Forest Products as their Director of Government Relations. I have with me Jeff Turnman. He's our Regional Operations Manager for the Mid-Island, and Stuart Glenn, who's our Director for Forest Inventory and Stewardship, and he's out of the Campbell River office. So we've got some topics tonight we'll have a discussion about. Just to be aware for council, I cannot see anybody at this point just because of the way that the presentation mode goes. So by all means, feel free to interrupt me during this presentation. We're going to go through Western at a glance, our 2020 sustainability report highlights, which I believe the CAO was sent a copy of, but if she does not have it, I'll make sure to resend that out for all of council. Quarterly updates for general and operational. And Stuart is here to talk about our net positive climate impact. So Western at a glance. So as Stuart Glenn is going to talk about, our net positive carbon balance is one of the highlighted things that we wish to talk about this quarter. We are one of the largest private employers on Vancouver Island. We provide suppliers and customers that are in the range of 1,800 different suppliers and customers. We balance or practice a strong ESG practice with 38% of women on board and executive officers. We have 6 VC sawmills and 2 reman plants. Our focus is manufacturing and managing our fiber within the island, within British Columbia. And we have completed 26 million seedlings planted between 2017 and 2020. We currently employ and or contract with 3,500 folks across our areas. Part of our 2020 sustainability report, which was recently released. Again, we've had a 27% increase in our big tree conservation since 2019. So I'll provide you as well as some notes about our big tree policy. We're very proud of that. We have 70% of old growth forests within the 10 years are conserved. We have 29 active agreements with First Nations or First Nations associations. I will speak a little bit about TFL 44 at that point, which is something we're very proud of. 1.6 million in community investments since 2017. I am in the process of working with senior VPs to discuss community contributions and how we are going to retailer those community contributions. So that is a stay tuned comment. And 100% use of the logs that arrive at our mill sites. So we do use 100% of what we receive. As far as our quarterly update is in general, we have recently worked with TASIS to move forward on their Community Unity Trail land donation, which was 5 parcels. That was just completed, I believe, last month. Recently, we have just completed, I believe, and Stuart can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 157 acres up near the area of Quetzino. So there was a land transaction that was completed. TFL ownership has increased to 35% with the goal of reaching a majority ownership of 51. You may have heard in the news about Hawaiian First Nations with Humus doing a TFL 44 LP ownership. So that is an ownership stake in the TFL 44 that Hawaiian has with their organization. We're currently moving forward on a 2 billion tree initiative. This is a federal initiative to the best of my recollection. We've moved it out to several municipalities as a test. We're going to be moving it out to some more municipalities in the short term to look at ways we can support green initiatives, and this allows for planting up to 2 billion trees. And finally, we were one of the financial supporters for AVICC. I had a booth down there about 2 months ago, I believe it was in April, and we will continue to support municipal agencies as we go. Just going to turn this over to Jeff right now to speak about quarterly updates for operations in the area. So Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for making the time to hear us out tonight. Everyone hear me okay?
Got you loud and clear.
Yes.
All right, great. So I've been with Western for about 28 years and looking after the Mid-Island operation that operates in Kelsey Bay for about 11. I'm pretty proud of our safety record. We've got an MIR of 0 and have had for some time now. I come and talk to council probably several times a year since I've looked after Mid-Island and the Kelsey Bay operation. We've harvested about 1 million meters a year every year, except for I think the year of the strike. This year is no different. We're targeting about 970. Fire season's putting us behind a little bit, but we hope to catch up in the last quarter. That makes Kelsey Bay a very busy place, and our operation a very busy place. Again, we log 1 million meters and build about 150 kilometers of road a year. The operation CSA certified by an independent third party, and we donate locally to the community to as many as many that ask, really. The biggest one's the QSUM climb, but could be logs for the playground most recently, or there was some statues and stuff needed for the new walk in town. But you know, anything Sayward approaches on, we try and accommodate.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I will now move it over to Stuart, who will speak a little bit about our net positive climate impact. Stuart, floor is yours.
Yeah, and thanks everyone also for having us this evening. We're always happy to chat about forestry. So yeah, thanks for having us. Jeff mentioned being with Western 28 years. I'll say then I've been with Western for 22 years now. And forestry has been just a fantastic sector and a great career. For this evening, I just had one slide and really just wanted to touch on this piece about like the net positive climate impact. Like it's an important part and it's something that, you know, as all of us are driving around and we see the forests or we see logging trucks or we see, you know, manufactured lumber, just in all of that is the carbon story. So like as just some brief background, like the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has noted that sustainable forest management, and Jeff touched on that, is really part of the global climate change solution. And tied to that is also like the wood products piece and their benefit, not only storing carbon, but then they offset other more carbon intensive products. So for context, just to give some relation to the numbers coming up. So under the Paris Agreement, Canada's committed to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. And there's also the conversation, a lot of conversations now of getting to net zero. And so Canada's gross emissions in 2019 were 730 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So as part of our sustainable forest management, a piece of that is very much the carbon, the component of that. And so we focused on, really understand what is our full life cycle carbon. And that takes into account the forest, the emissions, the manufacturing, the wood products, the substitution benefits, all of the components to the full life cycle carbon, so the way that the planet would see it as far as the full life cycle of the carbon. So for 2018, 2019, it actually equates to a net positive carbon balance of 14.2 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So what that actually means is that's not net zero. That is that many tons of carbon removed from the atmosphere through through the forest management activities, all of the work that that happens in forestry. It's a net sequestration of carbon. Equivalent's taken 1.54 million cars off the road, and the forests themselves removed an estimated 8 million tons of CO2 equivalents for both 2018 and 2019. So I just wanted to mention this piece. It's an exciting part. It really, another piece, just why we really have nothing better than forestry. We have all the benefits that come with our sector, and at the same time, our work locally just really contributing to the overall climate change solution. When we see our forests out there, they're growing, they're healthy, they are really contributing to the overall climate change solution, just our work locally. So just wanted to cover, share that, and happy, any questions, discussion on it.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone have any questions regarding the presentation? Okay, I have a question. If maybe somebody can explain why is it important to log old growth? I'm really asking because I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm happy to cover off. Thanks for that question. It's a good question, and there's been a lot of conversations, lately on old growth, and so we've had lots of discussions on it. I would say a few pieces. One piece is all of the work we do is it's really inside of our stewardship and conservation context, right? And I think in our last meeting, we went through some of those slides, the science-based approach to forest management that we implement. As part of that, we have a plan that looks out 250 years, which is our management plan. And so, sorry, yeah, someone's jumping around. Just distract me there for a minute. But we have a plan that looks out 250 years, which is the management plan. And that plan, there's the conserved portion of the forest, and then there's the call it the timber harvest and land-based portion of the forest. And there is a component of old growth inside the timber harvest and land base, inside of that stewardship and conservation context. That's part of the long-term sustainability of flow for the forest. That's forecast out into the future, stable wood flow essentially through time, which is a key part of the sustainability piece. So there is the component, there's a small component that is inside the timber harvest and land base. As far as the overall context for the coast, 75% of the coastal forest is conserved. Only 25% of the whole coastal forest is actually the timber harvest and land base. So it's a very small component of the overall forest. There is a component of old growth in there. It is part of the long-term, sustainable management, fiber flow through time, or forest growth through time, because trees do grow through time. It's a whole range of age classes in that portion of the forest inside of the broader context.
Okay, but so why is it necessary to take an old growth? Because old growth here in the island, from what I understand, is something that's 250 years old or older. And on the mainland, it's 140 or something like that
The interior, yeah.
in the
Yeah.
interior.
Yeah.
So, but why cut an old growth? Is it just because it produces that much more lumber? Or,
No, I would answer it through like the management plan that looks out 250 years. And how do you describe it? Like the forest grows through time. So there's a whole range of age classes. In
Right.
real simple terms, to a certain degree, the young trees are not yet old enough to harvest, right? Because it's based on a sustainable basis of, an equal flow through time. So as the young trees are growing and becoming large enough for domestic manufacturing the facilities on Vancouver Island, there's still a component of old growth that is harvested while the young trees continue to grow, for overall sustainability through time.
okay, thank you. Does any other councillors have a question? Councillor Craig?
Yeah, gentlemen, it's correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that old growth forests scrub less pollutants and produce less oxygen than younger forests. Younger forests are newer and they produce much more oxygen content than old growth forests. Is that a correct assumption to make, or is that an incorrect assumption to make?
Yeah, another good question. And younger trees do sequester more carbon than an older tree does because it's growing fast. That's when you get into the whole conversation of mean annual increment and when's the peak point of growth for a tree and so on. And that's where we get then into the conversation around like how much is being sequestered versus how much is being stored, right? Because a larger tree, of course, is going to have more carbon in it than a smaller tree, but a smaller tree is sequestering more carbon than an older tree. And so that's where then that whole life cycle carbon, like that balance that I talked about, the modeling, that takes into account the whole forest, right? So all the age classes, the young ones, the old ones, all that comes together into those numbers that I shared in the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other councilman have a question? Councillor Paulson?
Well, this councilman does.
Councilman, sorry.
Thanks very much for meeting with us tonight. I have a few questions. The old growth timber and stewardship and conservation, how much is the First Nations a part of that conservation and stewardship?
Yeah, I mean, you may take this one as well here, Brad.
I was going to say you're on a roll right now, Stuart. If you want to continue, please be my guest.
Yeah, and these are fantastic questions, and another really good one, and really that whole piece as far as like the collaborative work that we do is absolutely an important piece. That Brad mentioned the TFL 44 piece. There's other work definitely that we planning wise do collaboratively. For in the Sayward area and our work that we do with like Nanawakolis and some of that work. And I know we announced some with Nanawakolis, and we announced that Nanawakolis announced it, but that was like the large cultural cedar protocol piece and the work done with them on that. So there's a whole range of, it's really, there's a whole range of work that's done in that regard, but it's really a key part of forest management, of relationships and the work that we do, and something that we spend a lot of time on and really focus on for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And my second question is around tourism, and with the North Island having some of the best old growth and forest operations, do you have any plans or intentions of developing some public tours that could go out into your operations and see firsthand the actual skinning of logs and stacking them up? And I know I was out in the back roads last winter and we stopped and watched the work that was going on just off M Branch, I think it was. And it was it was so intriguing to see that. And I've lived on the island all of my life and been around forests from Lake Cowichan to Port Alberni and to Sayward. And it's just so interesting, and so many people that come to Sayward or come to the North Island, that's what they're coming for, is to see the back roads and what goes on in the forest and how it's managed. And it's just, to me, it's a perfect opportunity to provide information to the people from all around the world that come here. And also the White River Old Growth Park. We were there not long ago, and I don't know who looks after that, but it has been very poorly maintained over the last several years. And I just wanted to go in there with a machete and start hacking things down so you could get through. But it's a real disappointment to see something like that is so worthwhile, that looks so overgrown and run down and hasn't been taken care of. So it looks like we're not managing those kind of displays as well as we could be to impress people from other countries of this is how we do it in this area. So I just wondered if you had any plans or like HR things to get some public information and tours out into the forests.
Even to add on Councillor Polson's comment, something that is, she has a great idea about you taking groups and so on and so forth out to show exactly what is done. And this way, also the science can be brought forth to these people. The actual science, not emotion and not this is happening because of this and that. The actual reality, and get that out to the public, because the science obviously is very important. Sorry, Brad, you had your hand up first, I believe.
Yep. I thought I'd give Stuart a break for a little bit. I thought I'd jump in there. So thank you. There was part of the pre-COVID thing. We did have some tours that went on for specific things, though tours have kind of stalled on the process, but I think we're talking a little deeper than that. I believe that members of this council have been contacted about the municipal engagement strategy that Western Forest Products is currently undertaking, and these are some of the things that I'm looking forward to understanding. I'm in the process of building ways that we work with individual municipalities by looking at their strategic initiatives, by looking at their strategic planning, by looking at all sorts of their building blocks and what their wishes are, and how Western can be a part of supporting that community process. So these comments, because they're videotaped, I can obviously go back and look at the tape. I can take these down, and then I can start having a look at particular ways that Western is or should be supporting Sayward.
Sorry, Jeff, you had your hand up as well? Did he freeze up there, or we lost you, Jeff?
I think Jeff is frozen.
Jeff is frozen. How about Norm? Councillor Kirshner, go ahead.
Yeah, just to say a little bit more on what Councillor Polson was saying. We do call that area, we refer to it as a park. So maybe a little bit of brushing and a little bit of cleanup once in a while would be in order. That's all.
Thank you. Jeff, you're back. I see your hand.
So, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can
I
see
really
you.
I just wanted to completely agree with Sue. Forest tours are fantastic. I remember when I started my career as a forester and spent a lot of time putting on tours for Western, and the public just loved them, and we love giving them. I would love to have Brad have that as a takeaway, well, all of us, but I really would love to continue doing forest tours again.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to also, before you go anywhere, I'm going to make a motion. Sorry, you had something else to add, Stuart?
Yeah, sorry, I could just add one more piece of thought to that. I agree with the comments as well. And but just to share one of the pieces we're working on right now, and this is through like the public advisor groups, and like we had through some of the work with them and conversations. And so right now we're actually currently working on getting some signage together that would relate to our actual like silviculture activities, like variable retention, and then some of the reforestation aspects in some of the travel corridors to help communicate some of that message. That piece is currently being worked on as well. And just another thought too is at the last meeting, I think one thing we chatted about was like, you know, Western's big tree policy. Like there are, you know, close to Sayward are also, you know, some very large, tall trees as well. So there could be another opportunity in that as well. But some of the tallest in quite a large area. So so some pieces there as well to share.
Thank you. Councillor Craig?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask before the presentation is over, if council will be allowed to ask any additional questions to the members of Western Forest.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to do a slight amendment to the agenda. And we're going to move the staff report for C, not for A and B, but on C. So I need a motion to move that to here and keep the gentleman from Western Forest Products online. Okay, so can I have a motion to move the staff report number C, or letter C, pardon me, to this portion?
I will make that motion, yeah.
Second?
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay. Gentlemen, while we have you online, as you know, there has been recently, since the 4:30 a.m. start, there has been a lot of upset people, shall we say, from people coming to some of our doors at 5:30 in the morning to wake us, stating basically if they're awake because of the log sort, so should we. And I know that you've been in contact with the CAO on the numerous complaints that have come in, and we'd like to address those publicly now, if you gentlemen are agreeable.
Thank you, Mayor Baker, for that. This falls under a lot more of my bailiwick, so the other two gentlemen on the call could probably be excused for this if they wish, but I'm more than happy to sit and have a discussion about the questions you have in front of you.
Okay, so Stuart and Jeff, what is your take? Did you want to stay on the call or did you want to go?
I'll stay for now.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay. Yeah.
Okay, good. So CAO for letter C on the staff report, please. Sorry, CAO, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor Baker, and good evening, council, and good evening to our guests. I want to, pardon me, to reiterate what Mayor Baker has just introduced, in that we did receive a series of complaints following the readjusted schedule of the working schedule starting very early, 4:30, and in fact, we've recently received more complaints indicating that there's been quite a bit of activities at 3:30 in the morning. And there are a number of late additions to the agenda, which include a recent petition, and we received two more comments today with respect to the level of noise this morning. We realize the importance of Western Forest Products to the village, and I think everybody's quite aware of the longstanding history of the operations. But one of the things that we heard from people was, yes, we knew about this when we moved here, but we didn't know about the 3:30, 4:30, 5:30 starts. And of course, we have a noise bylaw, bylaw 342, which permits the operation of sawmills and log work between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. I know in discussion with Brad that there's some operational difficulties with sticking to that schedule. And I guess that's one of the options here is to look at amending the noise bylaw to provide some flexibility with some discussion about how to actually address the issues at hand. So council, before you tonight, we have three options, basically. One is the status quo, which is basically a little unacceptable to citizens. We've had, almost 20 people in our doors in the last little while over this one issue. But the bylaw does allow for this operation, but not in the hours that the company has been operating. More appropriate perhaps would be option 2, which is for us to work with Western Forest Product to develop some kind of a framework of operations that provides the flexibility the company needs, but also provides for some, I guess, compensation back to the community that's receiving the noise outside of those hours that were originally established. That's option 2. I think Brad and I have talked about this quite a bit, and we've developed a bit of a commitment to each other, I suppose, to try and work through some of the issues. We realize how difficult that is operationally, but we'd like to tackle it if we can. And of course, the third option in the staff report is a ticketing bylaw, which authorizes ticketing for bylaw offenses. It just provides a little bit more teeth to the noise bylaw. And again, there are more than one company in town, and so we need to be consistent in the application of bylaws and provide for some flexibility to recognize the importance of industry, and at the same time provide for some enforcement of bylaws so that there's fairness and equity and consistency of application and recognition of citizen interest. So the 3 recommendations are that council receive the staff report regarding the noise complaints. That staff be directed to work with Western Forest Products to establish a framework of operations that outlines times of operation, dust management, noise, fire abatement, and communication with the village. Again, we understand that there's been some changes to the forestry harvesting given the hot temperatures and the fire risk. And I think it would be beneficial to both of us to get maybe a call about that sort of thing, and then we can advise citizens so they're aware of these changes, and then provide them with a bit of warning. And then, of course, the third option is, or the third recommendation is that staff return to council with the ticketing bylaw that's currently out for legal review, so that we have an additional option to deal with situations like this. And so I'll leave it at that. And of course, we have lots of people here to answer questions. So thank you.
Any member of council have a question for the representatives from WFP today? Councillor Kirschner?
Yeah, a little bit earlier, we were talking about the times, early times that were starting. I had a very upset resident on my doorstep at 4:30. So it wasn't 5:30, it was 4:30. But anyway, I just wanted to straighten that out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Craig?
Yeah, I just wanted to reserve any questions until after Western Forest has made a statement on this. I just wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity after they've made their statement to ask any additional questions afterwards, please, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good point. So Western Forest Products, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Baker. As your CAO, yeah, if I could speak, sorry. As your CNO, I've had several conversations over the last 5 or 6 days, going back and forth. The CAO has relayed to me very clearly what the complaints and concerns are. We take these things obviously very seriously, and what I've committed to late in the day today was I'd be taking the complaints, comments, and concerns back to the decision makers, i.e. Both VPs of the organization, and we will start discussions in regards to how we work through these matters. I've committed to the CAO to ensure that we will try and respond to these things and figure out a best way that's mutually beneficial for both the village and us as well. So it's something that we will continue to work on. What I want to do is find a relatively quick resolve. I don't want this to drag out. So obviously we will be in conversations tomorrow morning.
Okay, may I ask a question there, Brad?
Yes,
When are you meeting with your VPs?
tomorrow morning.
You're meeting with them tomorrow morning?
Yes, I've scheduled a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're going to start going through some of the pieces, and then I will be in contact with your CAO to let her know what the next steps that we're able to proceed with.
Now, do you believe that with what you have read from what's been presented to you, that we're going to be able to come out with a compromise here? Is there, what discussion has taken place?
All I can say is,
You're gonna wait.
Mayor Baker. Yeah, well,
Fair enough.
what I can say is this: is I've been a CAO for 10 years previous to joining the organization, and as your CAO knows, there's always a way to find a resolution. So we're going to keep that mantra in place, and we're going to look towards a resolution.
Okay, is that it from WFP?
Unless members of council have any other questions for us, I believe that's all we have to present at this time.
Okay. Council? Councillor Craig?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I actually, one question was already answered, so I really appreciate that. I do have just two questions, and I don't need a response right now. I just would prefer it if you would take these questions to your meeting to have a generated response at a later date, please. First question is, if we start enforcing the noise bylaws and issuing tickets, will Western Forest Products pay them or will they dispute them in a court process? That's the first question, which again, I don't need an answer for right away. The second question would actually be more applicable to Jeff, if you might reply. I already know the answer because I have several friends who work at the log sort, but does Western Forest Product right now have any plans, any immediate plans to limit their log sort operations to the times listed in our noise bylaw or to the delegation's request of not operating on Sundays? What is your immediate plans going forward at this point of time, sir? And I guess I said that you didn't have to answer that right away, so I'm going to stick to that. I am going to stick to that because that's what I said, but that would be my second question. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Polson. You're muted.
Sorry.
Sorry, do you want me to answer that, Brad?
I think much like Councillor Craig has indicated, we can respond back here as soon as we have our meetings tomorrow. So we'll reserve any answers until we can have that discussion. But thanks, Jeff.
I just wanted to note that there was many complaints from about the noise early in the morning. And there was also concern about the amount of dust. So I just wanted to mention that I hope you'll take that, Jeff, to the senior management also, so that we can try and alleviate that problem, because it certainly is a concern for several homes in the community. My other comment is just that whether we live in a sawmill, forestry town, and we hear loud noises early in the morning or late at night, or logging trucks going by, I don't think it's any different from people that buy houses close to airports or trains running through the fields out the back. The guns those phony guns being shot in the blueberry fields out in Abbotsford that annoy people. So I'm just asking for tolerance on both sides, for the local people to have peace and quiet, but recognizing that the work in forestry is important to Sayward's economy, and we need to be tolerant of each other's needs and be respectful of those kind of issues. Thanks, that's all I have to say.
I agree with Councillor Polson. I mean, none of us or any of the residents, I believe, are saying that Western Forest Products should go away or anything like that. We know how important it is to the community, but there has to be some type of mutual respect that is found here. To be woken up at 2, 3 in the morning when you're doing nights, or be woken up at 4:30 when you're disrupting that type of sleep pattern for people that do have to work during the day or medically and everything else. I think it's something very important for you to take into consideration. The bylaw has been in place since 2005. I don't know, I can't speak to past councils on why this wasn't dealt with in the past. There is that, I'm just hoping all of us can get together and work on a solution here for that. We don't want to end up being combative with you, but we need to be able to have our residents have a proper night's sleep. And I don't think that's too much to ask. Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add agreement with everything that's been said, but also per your presentation prior to this conversation around the noise issue, science information is the most important. And so helping us all come to an agreement will involve information being made available to citizens, the council, obviously, around changes in the environment that cause the need for the company to have different hours, cause the balance for us to come to a compromise around a system that will work and maybe be more flexible than it is currently relative to structured hours. And I believe we can come to an agreement. Thank you.
Councillor Craig?
Yeah, I just want to make one final statement. It's not a question. My next door neighbor across the street has recently been employed by your company, and he really appreciates his job, as do several other Sayward residents here. I would like you to possibly expand your operations and build a sawmill, and that would be something I would very much like to see happening in the future. But thank you very much for employing people like my neighbor across the street and other residents here. Thank you very much.
Did Brad, did you ever get back to the CAO on how many people are actually employed that live in the village?
At the time, I was not able to get the numbers that I needed to, so that is something that I will clear up on tomorrow's call, and I will get back to the administrator on that.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody's in agreement that something has to happen, and it has to happen quickly. So whether or not we need to, after you get your information, Brad, from your VPs, whether or not we need to hold a special council meeting in the near future, because I don't want to wait another month to be able to answer these questions to the public. Fair enough?
Yeah, Mayor Baker, as I've indicated, I've been in close contact with your administrator day after day ever since she's brought this to my attention. So it is taken up a significant space, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It's a significant focus in trying to figure a solution out. So we've been talking over the last several days, and you can be assured that after my discussions tomorrow, you won't be waiting several months for a response. I'll be able to come back with some sort of potential direction forward with to the point where I'm hoping you're not having to call a special council meeting. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. CAO, do you have any comments? You're muted. CAO, oh, there you go.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. No, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to hearing from you shortly so we can have some resolution to this. So what we can do is a motion to, I guess, for the Western Forest Products Stability Report be heard. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You have a good night.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Number 6. Correspondence. Now, under correspondence, did everybody get the opportunity to read everybody's correspondence too? And the sound decibels that we're taking as well? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I did.
Does anyone have any comments on A, B, C, D? CAO?
No, thank you, Mayor. Not on this one. I'm sorry to interrupt the flow of the meeting. I think in moving the item on the Western Forest Products up on the agenda, we managed to lose 2 of the resolutions that we could go back to maybe after the correspondence. So
Okay, sorry.
Thank
Thank you. Yes, that's a good point. Resolution, let's go back to that. Resolution, the staff report for the noise complaints from WCB log sort be received and information and discussion. And that staff would be directed to work with WFP, to establish a framework of operations and outline time of operation, dust management, noise, fire abatement, and communication with the village. And finally, that staff return to council with the ticketing bylaw number for council's review and approval. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
I would like to add something, Mr. Mayor, that perhaps we should give Mr. Turman and his crew time to have their meeting, and let's find out what they come back with shortly.
I agree. Shortly is going to be the key, because I mean, to wait another month or 2 months and then the 4:30 in the morning is stopped and going into night. No, I agree. This has to be dealt with very quickly. And I believe that the CAO, as Brad mentioned, our CAO and Brad are in close contact, and they'll be going back and forth, and they'll apprise us on what's happening. Okay, anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Sorry, so let's go back to correspondence. Does anybody want to discuss any of the correspondence that's on the table? CAO, you have your hand up?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, just let me get my hand up.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just briefly discuss the item D, the staffing model for BCEHS, and the information that we got. And I strongly support a strongly worded letter to the health minister to just let him know that this certainly will not work for people in the North Island, for more smaller places that have restricted number of ambulance services, to say that they have initiated regular on-call positions when these people are being paid $2 an hour. They may as well, for 48 hours. So in the time of their 48 hours, if they don't get any call out, the pay for that is 48 times 2, which is $96. And I think in this day and age, when the paramedics are going out and they're frontline workers, and this is just not good enough. And it's, you know, it's no wonder that we can't find paramedics to work at the jobs. People are walking away from their profession, and it's very sad that you can go and get a job at McDonald's and work for $15 an hour, and you're not putting yourself in danger or your family in danger for what you could bring home to them all the time. So I fully support writing a very strong letter to the minister. That's
Thank
it.
you. CAO, you have your hand up?
Nope, sorry, Mayor, I meant to take that down.
Councillor Kirschner?
Yes, in this day and age, I find that the wages, $2 an hour, absolutely astounding. I can't believe it. Anyway, I just want my feelings to back up that strongly worded letter. Thank you.
I agree. For me, I mean, I agree with both the councillors. It's ridiculous on the wage, but it's also equally ridiculous that here we are in our community and there is so many times or days that we don't have any coverage at all. I'm going to talk about that in the mayor's report coming up, but we have absolutely, I mean, we have the ambulance, but we have no paramedic to work it. It's absolutely ridiculous that in this day and age that we go days, and that's somebody's life. That's life threatening. That's a golden hour is shot. It's, as I'm going to talk about in the mayor's report, which I might as well just, sorry, it's also the fact that they're pulling other resources to save BC Ambulance money, and they're using our fire department and volunteers to actually go to these first calls and sit and wait for an available ambulance. It's completely unacceptable in my opinion. So I agree. Does anybody else have any comments regarding D? No?
Sorry. Took a second for my hand to get up there, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Craig.
I will tell you, I have a couple of very, very close friends who are paramedics in the Lower Mainland, and their system is broken all over the province. They can't fill positions in the mainland either. They're working 36-hour shifts, and they're basically with a skeleton staff right now. They are, I wouldn't use the word mandating shifts, but they are strongly encouraging extra shifts for anybody who can take them. So the system is quite on life support, to say that, not to use a medical term, but given the fact that the system is so universally broken, I would like to state that if there are additional funds available, the minister will more than likely shift them to the more populous areas, which sucks, and it's very sad to say, but because the mainland and the interior is so destroyed right now, I have a feeling that if there are any emergency extra funds to go to those departments, that they will be allocated there and not here. I appreciate your letter, but I did want to inform you that I do have several close friends there, and it's dire there, and not to expect a whole lot, but I really do appreciate what you did.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay. So under correspondence, that correspondence A through D be received. Do you have a motion, please?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. Number 7, council reports. There is none. Number 8, reports of committee. None. And number 9, mayor's report, the impact of BCEHS and the SOC model in Sayward. I assume that you all had an opportunity to read it. Some of the concerns, I'm just going to paraphrase here, is the significant increase again to the calls of our volunteer fire department, our responders. And the fact that it's very difficult to attract any paramedics to this area without any guarantee of work. Now, they did have a paramedic, for example, coming here from the mainland. And when they had the kilo support of the guarantee of the 4 hours, it was somewhat worth the person driving here and spending the money on the ferry and so on and so forth. Now it's not. So we don't have the coverage. This is a place where paramedics have come to train and learn their trade before going to a full-time position into a major center. So Sayward has been awarded one position. Other communities had several, such in Quadra Island with 4. A request for 2 to 3 additional casual employees seems prudent to support 1,100 residents and visitors in highway traffic to manage a number of calls for emergency services provided for vacation and illness coverage. The new model creates a regular part-time SOC unit chief position in Sayward with 1 permanent position here. Without that guarantee of kilo guarantee, there is an absence of regular, predictable hours and income that we expect paramedics will have, and they'll move to larger communities to secure full-time work. It's difficult to attract staff here in the first place, whereas the previous model, again, had that kilo guarantee for enough hours that we'd be able to attract new responders. So the recommendation is that the impacts of the BCEHS and the SOC staffing model of the Sayward report be received, and that the staff direct to send the attached letter from Mayor and Council to BCEHS with the request from Sayward that additional 3 SOC positions and 3 casual positions be assigned to Sayward. Do I have a motion, please? Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. And I agree with Councillor Polson. I think after this first letter, perhaps something a little more strongly worded would be the direction to go. So number 10 is unfinished business. And we have none. Number 11 is staff report. So we have the staff report for the annual report statement of financial information. CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. You'll recall last month that we brought forward to Council the annual report and the statement of financial information for your review. And in accordance with the charter, we've posted it on our website and had ads out to let people know that it was available for review. It's required to be available for the public to review for a 14-day period. And so we began that on June 15th, and it has been online since then. We haven't received any input from the public on the annual report, and staff are recommending that Council approve the annual report and that we comply with the terms of the charter on this annual report and statement of financial information.
Thank you. So the council receives the report and the SOFI 2020 staff report for information and discussion, that the council approves the 2020 annual report for distribution. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. CAO B.
Thank you. The next item relates to the reserve policy. We brought forward the initial suggestion that Council consider a reserve policy with the financial plan quite a while ago, and Council, of course, directed that we follow the schedule that's attached to this staff report. So that would be June 15th. We were directed to prepare a reserve policy. July 20th, which is now, we've got the reserve for you, and then there's an option there for its approval. I just want to start by, I want to say a couple things, and then I'd like to ask the CFO, who's done all the work on this, good work on this report. This is a difficult, ambitious, and aspirational policy. Obviously, the financial situation of the village makes it kind of difficult to achieve the targets that we've included. However, we have to establish some framework for minimum and maximum And, you know, I think it's a good strategy to have a reserve policy in place, and maybe council might choose to prioritize some of the funding places, or may seek other options for sources. It is meant to be sort of an aspirational policy that we move towards. It's difficult, of course. Council doesn't have to approve this policy, but I think it puts council in good stead on grant approvals and that sort of thing, where we try and take on the asset management plan and to work towards replacement of critical infrastructure. However, I just do want to say that council is not obligated to pass this, and the public should realize that once we pass this, we may not achieve these goals, but we'll make some progress towards them. There's basically 2 or 3 sources of funding for these sorts of things, and a big one might be amenity funding through land development projects, where a property owner increases the value of their property through rezoning, and in exchange for that increased value of their asset, there's a negotiated amenity which can be put towards this fund in a cash deposit for specific infrastructure. And of course, there's other sources of funding as well that's outlined in the policy, but I'd like to ask the CFO to take you through it, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. CFO?
Thank you, Mayor Baker, and to council. So I think the CAO has pretty much basically summed up this report. It's, as she said, you know, a draft policy. It's entirely up to council whether this policy is approved tonight. You know, again, as she said, it's ambitious. It may not be achievable, but it's a starting point. So, you know, it should be reviewed probably annually for at least the first 3 to 5 years by council, just to make sure that, you know, it is still something that council is wanting. When we look at the financial plan, how are these reserves going to be funded? Will we be able to only fund some of them? You know, so it's a living document. We've got to start somewhere, as the CAO mentioned. So, you know, when figuring out how to fund these reserves, again, that's going to be at the financial planning sessions. And what I've included in this report is basically just a statement saying that as a transition item, current reserve and surplus amounts will be analyzed, and then recommendations for transfers will be provided. So there are some funds sitting in some reserves right now that I will bring to council in a report with some recommendations on, okay, you know, you've got X amount of dollars sitting over here. Here's my recommendation to put it into this new reserve. And that'll be brought to council in the fall, once we've got a better picture of where financials stand and spending year to date, etc. The policy is fairly straightforward. I think it's based on Lake Country's reserve policy, which we had discussed at a previous meeting. I found that it was pretty easy to read. You know, it's got basically all of the information that council would need in a policy. I mean, that's the beauty of local government, is we all sort of share our policies and share our bylaws and share our information. And it was great that I could use this as sort of a template. So I think maybe at this point it's, you know, I'll pass it over to council if you have any questions. Myself and the CAO can answer them and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. Council? Any councillor have a question? Okay, I have a question. I realize this is the draft. So the percentages that were placed on page 2 under A, say for capital reserve fund, CAL, at 25%, minimum level, maximum level 25%. Same thing for the sewer capital and the water capital. Those are just numbers picked out from where? CFO?
So that was sort of I had to start somewhere. So when looking at historical grant applications that have been submitted through the village, you know, typically grants are funded anywhere from between, say, 75% funded to 90% funded. Sometimes we get 100% grant funding, which is great. But usually there's some monies that the village has to contribute to projects. So when looking at what we should include as a percentage, I chose 25%. And I only did that because, you know, some grants you're going to have 90% funded. So then that would leave a little bit of extra money in that reserve for other things that the village and the council wants to do that may not be grant funded. So it's just sort of a starting point just to figure out, you know, where we can have a minimum and a maximum. And again, I would bring all that information to you when we go through the financial plan and actually look at the numbers and figure out, you know, what's that going to look like in numbers. I did include in my report a little bit of an example of how that's going to work. On page, this agenda isn't numbered. Page 3 of my staff report, I just included a little chart just to demonstrate how the policy could be applied. And looking at the general capital fund for 2022, the budget is 289,000. So that's including your snow and salting truck, your Kubota lawnmower that needs replacing, and replacing Rescue 33. So 289,000 times your 25%, you would need to place about 72,000 into your capital reserve fund. And again, some of those might be grant funded, some of them you might have to fund 100%, but that's all part of the financial planning process, and that information would be brought to you at that point.
Okay, thank you. Council, what do you think? Should we wait to pass this until we have more information going forward? Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I got my hand still up there. You know, I think based on the conversation and the information here, we all agree we've got to start down this road, and this is a start, and it can be adjusted. It's a process that is important to any community in terms of responsibly looking to the future. So I personally would agree with moving forward with it at this time.
Okay, so you'd like to vote on it today, is that correct?
That's my opinion, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor have any input? CAO, you have your hand up?
Sorry, Mayor Baker, I wanted to wait until council had a chance to talk on it. I just wanted to say that if there's some hesitation about the 25%, we can of course vary that. You know, it does kind of give an optic that council should be doing something, so it'll be important to clarify in our policy that that is a goal rather than a requirement, so that the council isn't, you know, accused of not following its own policy. But so we can vary that 25% if there's concern about those optics.
About that, Councillor Paulson? You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to agree with Councillor Tinsley, and I think we do need to start somewhere, and 25% is a nominal amount. And when you're looking at having a grant funded 50%, and then you have to come up with the other 50% or 90%, and you have to come up with 10%. 25% seems like a suitable number to go with, and like the CFO said, it can be adjusted. We just need to start somewhere and see how this is all going to work out. Thank you.
I agree. Councillor Craig.
Yeah, when this all started, I actually had 15% in the back of my head. 25% is what's on paper. I'm fine with getting started. We can dither with the numbers at a later date, but no, I'm fine with taking a vote on this today. I agree with Councillor Tinsley there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Councillor Kirschner, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good as long as council remembers that we're not locked into any percentage. It can be varied. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, but I think it's important to, even though that the percentage can be varied, it still has to be something annually. Is that not agreed?
I agree.
It's got to be something. Okay, so we need a resolution. Let me just see if I can find it here. So, sorry, folks, that the reserve policy appropriately received for mission and discussion, and the staff be directed to prepare the draft. We already did all that. Sorry, report. Sorry, folks, let me just find, I was reading the reports. So that the staff reserve policy be received and that council approve reserve policy number 300-07, and that the staff be directed to prepare a reserve bylaw to be presented at the August 17, 2021 council meeting. Do I have a motion?
So,
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Excellent. Okay. And we go to bylaws on number 12. None, new business. I believe there is none on the new business as well. And then we go into public question period. The purpose of the public question period is to provide and permit people in the gallery to ask questions about the issues discussed by council during the meeting. Speakers are allowed to ask one question each if time permits. After everyone has had the opportunity to ask the question, speaker will be allowed to ask a second question. For the record, please state your name and address. And given that the meeting is being held electronically, did we have any questions in writing? CAO?
No, Mr. Mayor, we didn't have questions in writing, but we've got a guest who's joined since you asked me last time. Mary Ruth Snyder is here and may have questions.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mary Ruth, do you have any questions for Mayor and Council?
She's muted. There we go.
Hi, Mary Ruth, can you hear us?
I think Mary Ruth is muted according to my screen here. If she can hear us.
Is Mary Ruth still on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it says that she's here.
Oh.
It says that she's muted though, so maybe she's left her computer screen.
Okay,
We don't
well-
hear any response.
well, then we're gonna have to save the question for the next. In camera, we are preparing to go into camera in accordance with section 92 of the community charter. This council meeting will be closed to the public at the time in order council may be consideration to the matter in accordance with section 90 of the community charter to discuss labor relations and employee relations. So we're now going in camera. So is Mary Ruth gone?
No. Council, I think we have to adjourn this meeting and we should stop the recording and we should end the meeting and start a new one.
Thank you. So recommended resolution to adjourn this meeting for do I have a motion, please?
so moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Okay, opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. So if we can stop the recording, please.